AUP friend is our Vice President for Enrollment Management and Dean of Admissions, Tim Rogers. He's the reason you are here. Also with us today are a couple of people who you certainly met through the orientation process. First, our Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Bill Fisher. And our Vice President for Student Services, Operations and Security, Mark Montiard. Our Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President, Valerie Faudet. These are key people running this university for your student and all of us every single day. We're delighted that they're here today. They, along with Celeste and me and several of the other people that you met, some admissions officers, Kevin Four, and a couple of other presenters from panels, will all be over at Chateau Forum for the reception beginning at 6 o'clock, and we can't wait to talk with you. You could probably tell, well, I guess you told me, that the acoustics here are a little bit tough, so we're going to forego formal Q&A here. However, at the end of the presentation, which will not last the full hour, all of the members of the leadership team and the people from my office will be up in front here, and we look forward to answering any questions you have here. And of course, we'll all be over across on Bleed at Chateau Forum beginning at 6. So we look forward to a full conversation and all of your questions and answers, and we'll do that informally. This afternoon, we are most delighted to welcome Celeste Schenck, AUP's president. Celeste joined the AUP community nearly 30 years ago, so she's been with the university for nearly half of its life, and all of hers, as you'll see. She joined as a professor of comparative literature, I almost said politics, comparative literature. And over the years, she has held, as far as I can tell, every single academic and administration position, including mine, possible at the university. But in 2008, the board was wise enough to select her to be AUP's 12th president. And in the years since, she has led nothing short of a dramatic transformation of the university. Both the buildings and campus, which we hope you have had your walking tour today and have a chance to get to know some of the buildings and places in the 7th where your sons and daughters will be spending the next 4 years. And also the curriculum, guiding real change to our curriculum to prepare the best academic experience for our global explorers, your students. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Celeste Schenck.
Mary Evans forgot to say her name. So her name is Mary Evans, and you'll have many opportunities to see her. This is the first time, I believe, we have ever held parents' orientation in the church, so I feel like I should start with Dearly Beloved or something like that in this august space. But you'll hear in a few seconds why this space is symbolic in this particular year. Can everyone hear me, including people in the back? No, you cannot hear me. Okay. Now can you? A little bit? Okay, I'll try to keep it as close to my mouth as I can. Is that better? So, you are the parents and guardians of the 60th entering class of the American University of Paris, and you are entering, and your students, your children are entering at a very precise and very precious moment for this university. We were founded in 1962 as the American College in Paris, and then became AUP some years after, and we have been for now close to half a century the only foreign accredited comprehensive university in France. The only. This year we'll be celebrating that legacy of our 60th anniversary in many, many different ways, and in fact, the reason that we're gathered here in the church is that AUP-ACP was founded in the basement of the American Church in September 1962, exactly 60 years ago. We are still partners with the church in so many ways. They actually empty out all the pews at Thanksgiving so that our American students can give non-American students a taste of what American Thanksgiving is like. And we are continuing to rent the gym a couple of floors down. So this has been a very, very long partnership. I am myself feeling a little nostalgic today because this is the last time I will greet a September class of parents. At the end of this academic year, after 4 years as provost and 13 years as president, I will be stepping down to pursue my own next dreams, and the board is busy looking for a successor to whom I can hand the baton. I feel that I'm leaving the university in the best shape it's ever been in, thanks to the incredible work of a wonderful board, of very committed parents, of terrific student bodies, of alumni, a circle of alumni around the world who support the university, and the best leadership team there is. So it's a very special pleasure today to welcome you, particularly the 60th class of parents, to the extended AUP family and to our campus by the Seine. On this beautiful late summer day, a little cold for my taste, but still a late summer day, AUP and Paris are both at their best. What other university on earth is nestled between the Eiffel Tower and the Invalides and shares the address of Quai d'Orsay with the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Our university, too, is a kind of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So a year ago, many of you may not have dreamed that you would be sending your child to Paris for a part or all of this college experience. And I want to congratulate you for accompanying your global explorer as he or she dreamed of doing things a little bit differently, took the road less traveled by, stumbled through all the obstacles, the visas, the passe sanitaire, all the things that it took to be able to be here in Paris on the 1st of September. In this particular year, during this surreal time in history, your willingness to send your child abroad indicates that you trust both them and us. And I'll have more to say about COVID later, but expect from the start that not only your child, but you and your family will be changed by the time that your child spends at AUP. Little did our former board chair know when he sent his daughter over to France almost 15 years ago to come to college at AUP that she would one day marry my son, 10 years after both of them left AUP. And so you will quickly learn that this university is that kind of personal and that kind of magical. So plan for the unexpected. You have already had a chance to meet my colleagues and to hear about many aspects of your child's pending experience: student affairs, the co-curriculum, the health policies, the academic requirements, housing, just naming a few of the things that you've already learned about and probably have questions about. But today I want to lift the tone a little to sort of to address some issues with you that go to the heart of this experience. Essentially, what it means to live and study in a country that is not your own. I believe deeply that there is nothing that stretches you more than the experience of being not at home, of stretching yourself into the home of another, of learning, of discovering as early in your life as possible that your own country is not the center of the world. I told your children when I met them virtually last weekend that there is no more transformative experience than study abroad. This has actually been documented in scholarly literature. So they should rise fully to the opportunity and be a person on whom nothing is lost. I know whereof I speak. When I was 10 years old and my parents moved to Europe and rather unceremoniously dropped me and my little sister off at a Catholic boarding school in the south of France. We weren't even Catholic. I must tell you that Catholic boarding schools in the late 60s were the stuff of movies. We slept in dormitories like the ones in the Madeleine books, long dormitories. We were locked in at night. There were no bathrooms. You had to go and get a little chamber pot and put it under your bed. We were subjected to these horrible dictations. And in the very beginning, I would get 0 minus 100 on those dictations, which were graded over 20. 2 points off for a misplaced comma. But when we did finally mid-year begin to get zeros on our dictations, my father broke out the champagne. It was indeed an experience of culture shock. I was a third country kid though, and a global explorer already to begin with. My parents, who actually met in Paris after the war, were of 2 different nationalities, neither of them American, 2 different religions, and they were 21 years apart in age. But nonetheless, I am convinced that the places you take your children, the places you take your children early in their lives, the experiences that they absorb, such as gaining this perception of their own country and its values from the outside, will have lifelong impact. Looking back on my own experience of that convent at age 10, which I really didn't think I would survive at the time, I have come to see my early, disruptive, powerful experience of French culture as one of the single most important formative experiences of my life. I became a student of French literature. I married a French husband whom I met in the lobby of my building in New York, and I found my life's work in leadership of the American University of Paris. It's hard not to see the arc of destiny in my parents' early travel experiments with us. Year before last, I finally became a French citizen. It was a very important moment and a very important decision. As Mary mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm AUP's 12th president, the second woman, the first president to be appointed from inside the House. I like to think it's because I have this institution in my bones. I've been here for, I think at this point, over half the institution's life. I've sent both of my children and many of my friends' children here, and I've always been its most passionate advocate. When I first arrived as a relatively young teacher, some 31, 32 years ago, a kind of pure product of the Ivy League, I knew that something special went on in our classrooms, something I had never experienced before. At Barnard, where I had tenure, I was a feminist daughter of a feminist mother teaching feminist daughters of feminist mothers. So it was a very homogeneous little situation. When I got here to the AUP classroom, it was a true eye-opener. I had 12 nationalities in my freshman class, some in that first semester, some of whom had never read a work of Western literature. So I had to invent with my students a kind of new space, a kind of present, in which all students brought their cultural baggage with them, and we sort of made something of that wonderful petri dish that is the AUP classroom. It combines faiths and nationalities and ethnicities and languages. I had to remake myself as a teacher, but in the process I fell in love with the very special character of this learning environment. We here at AUP prize the inflection of all learning by the demographic diversity of the faculty and the students. Here, comparisons and discussions about cultural, social, racial, political, economic, religious, and linguistic difference crisscross everything we do. We call this reach across student differences lateral learning. And I told your children when I spoke to them this weekend that they will learn as much from their fellow students in their classes as they learn from the faculty. Alumni who graduated 50 years ago tell me they still talk to me about the impact on their lives. More important, AUP transcends that trite anthem that you find in virtually all college view books, the "It's a Small World After All" theme, promoting tolerance and inclusivity. When you juggle 100 different nationalities in the student body, some years we get up to 110, speaking 70 languages and dialects, crossing more cultural borders than you can count, then you can begin to talk about how you deal with diversity. At AUP, we know that tolerance is way overrated, and that difference is, in fact, edgy. Bridging difference actually requires strong negotiating skills, what I like to call cultural intelligence, CI, as anyone who's been in a bicultural marriage can attest. AUP is a community in which everyone is a foreigner and everyone is a language learner. 84% of our students come from outside the country, but even our French students, crossing from the European educational system into the American system, are foreigners, are experiencing that notion, that feeling of displacement. The reward of having this experience so early in your children's lives is huge and will affect all of their life choices. That is the long gift of an AUP education, one that your child will be understanding and unfolding for the rest of their lives. Now, about this great unlearning that is about to befall your children, studies tell us that the first thing students do when they go abroad is to find fault with the host culture. And there'll be plenty of things to find fault with this fall. Don't be surprised if you there's a kind of developmental curve divided into halves. Don't be surprised if you get plenty of phone calls at first complaining about the endless bureaucracy, The fact that nothing is, or next to nothing, is open on Sunday, and the slow internet, also the diffidence of French waiters. For the first few months, developmentally, again, you can count on your child to hunker down and to resist the foreign. But that irritant rapidly becomes a pearl, and by the second semester, they begin to gush about the food, they begin to talk about French savoir-faire, the elegance of French life and culture, the style, museums. Aspects of European culture that are beginning to be readable by them. In a few years' time, because studying abroad is always a time-release spill, they will just be beginning to take the measure of how their time in Paris has changed them. As you know, there's a long history of people coming to Paris to find themselves. The American historian David McCullough has written compellingly about that in The Greater Journey. And your children, there's a way that expatriation offers a kind of freedom to find yourself that is exhilarating, right? That unleashes creativity and growth, and your children are inscribing themselves in that history. A word about our own history. The American University of Paris was founded thanks to the energy of one visionary. His name was Lloyd Delameter, a 40-year-old economist with a doctor in economics from the Sorbonne, married to a French woman, an American Foreign Service officer and former NATO officer. He was disturbed by the wreckage of post-war Europe and decided he needed to found a school so that American students, who were located, many of them, in the bases across Europe after the Second World War, could be deprovincialized. That's his word. It's not a beautiful word, but you know what it means. He was a visionary who asked the deeply pertinent question, how might one bridge the gap of narrow nationalisms? And you can imagine that for 50 years, for 60 years now, we've been responding to that question. In fact, it has become bedrock to our mission. I hope, as Dr. Delameter did when he raised a glass exactly 60 years ago at exactly this moment of the year to the first incoming class of about 100 people, I too wish for our students and your children that they experience firsthand and hopefully a little uncomfortably that feeling of being not at home, so that they can stretch themselves into new ways of being, so they can find new ways to resolve the inevitable tensions between human beings different from one another in a complex world. Please do not rush in to allay their anxieties and make them too comfortable. The discomfort is the point, the very gauge of growth. At AUP, we teach the global liberal arts, all the traditional range, the deep learning, the questions about what it means to be human, the critical thinking, the broad cultural exposure that the liberal arts provide are there. But for a reason, so that our graduates can feel at home anywhere in the world and in any of many languages. I believe, as I think you can tell, that education is the only reliable means that we have to achieve world peace. Only in a classroom, lovingly and attentively facilitated by a great teacher, can students, still malleable at their age, transcend their biases, prejudices, ideologies, forging in the process a wider and more flexible notion of what it means to live with others. At a moment when we're witnessing the rise of insular nationalisms across the globe, AUP's mission has never been so important, and our graduates never so prepared to lead in a world that has need of them. Of the worst problems we currently need to solve, rising inequality, poverty, human trafficking, public health issues like the one we're going through right now, and not just this pandemic, but likely future ones, the environment, terrorism, to name just a few, all of these are transnational, and we will only find lasting, sustainable solutions if we figure out how to lower and not raise the walls between us. At the American University of Paris, we are in full forward motion, delivering on this mission. Over the past 10 years, we have essentially refounded this university for its second half-century. We began by mining our data and asking the question, whom do we exist as a university to serve? And we looked at 30 years of data to understand the kind of student who came to AUP and who flourished and who found their place in this multicultural world and in a global workplace. We came to call this student our global explorer. Maybe you'll recognize your own child in this description. Generally a global explorer, sort of marches to the tune of their own drummer. They're always surprising you. They're unique, they're quirky. Some of them are zigzag kids who don't exactly know at first what they want to do, who come in with multiple ideas, who are enthusiastic, who like to travel, who are interested in other people. This is sort of the portrait of the global explorer. We also have other types of global explorers, such as students who have never held a passport until they come to school here, but they want to be part of that bigger world where they find themselves in an international environment in dialogue with others. Within a few years of identifying our kind of student, we raised our enrollment numbers by 40%, began recruiting about 80% of our incoming class at the top of our fit scale. Our fit scale was looking for the kind of student who would come to us and flourish. And accordingly saw a rise in our average GPA both entering and at the end of the first year. That's coherence, was that kind of fit, that kind of coherence we were looking for. We then set about creating the kind of campus and curriculum and research centers that global explorers seek out and thrive in. Over the past 5 years, we've renovated our entire campus. Beginning with the Calm Student Life Center, then the Passage Lambrieux Classroom Building, the La Tour Maubourg Administration Building, Welcome Center, the Teaching and Mentoring Center that is our Grinnell Building. We put the jewel in the crown when we opened 69 Quai d'Orsay as a student learning center now about 3 years ago. It houses a state-of-the-art library, an academic resource center for point-of-need help with everything from research to writing to multimedia editing and study skills, an integrated advising and career development, internship and leadership office, not to mention a spectacular rooftop conference center with 180-degree views of the right bank from La Défense all the way to, let's say, Montmartre. We wrested this building from the city of Paris and the French state. That took 3 years in order to provide to our students, back to back with Combs, this beautiful building that so emblemizes the nature of our curriculum. On the one side, student life, on the other side, student learning, with no separation between the two. The old-styled architecture of the university, where we would study at the library and then go to some club or something like that to party, is over. Our students move fluidly back and forth, and the glass bridge between the Student Life Center and the Student Learning Center is an emblem of the kind of curriculum, the holistic curriculum that we have aimed to put in place here. But, of course, we decided, since we developed considerable expertise in real estate projects, that we would not stop there, and this fall we're opening a Center for the Arts in our old library building with 2 studios, a lithography lab, art history classrooms, and a beautiful auditorium that will be dedicated in honor of Olivia de Havilland, who was one of the 2 famous actresses in Gone with the Wind and many other films. And she was an AUP mother, AUP board member, and not only a legendary actress, but really a friend of the university for so many years. We feel very honored to be able to name that space in her honor. And then there's our educational project, and I'm only going to say 2 words about it because I'm sure that our provost has already spoken to you about it. He is, last year, this year, and next year, will be implementing Navigating 21st Century Pathways, which is our new curriculum designed for our students. It combines, as I've said, deep liberal arts learning and hands-on applications of that learning. And it runs parallel to this rigorous 4-year GPS exploration of a student's life and career purpose. That's our signature. The fact that a student's specialized work, academic work, is paired with the kind of program that Darcy Caron probably told you about a little bit earlier during the virtual orientation. So students get a chance to ask a question that I think is much more important than what they're going to major in. They get to ask, what's my purpose? What are my deepest values? What am I drawn to? What kind of a difference do I want to make in the world? And we start asking those questions with our students in the very first year. Because, I'm going to let you in on a very open secret here, it really doesn't matter what they major in. At the undergraduate level, you can major in philosophy and move into private equity directly. It doesn't really matter what you major in. So, We also created 5 mission-driven research centers where faculty mentor student research devoted to some of the world's most pressing issues and our deepest research strengths: cultural translation, the study of genocide, human rights, and conflict prevention, the critical study of democracy, the environment, and a civic media. Everything about this university, from the curriculum to every hire of a new teacher, from our processes and procedures to every single campus space, has been aligned with the needs and aspirations, as we understand them, of our global explorers. Students like your sons and daughters who've come halfway across the world, or maybe just across the Seine, in search of the powerful transformation that our university provides. We believe that that transformation is both personal and intellectual because they are coextensive and indistinguishable. So a quick word on COVID. You have no doubt some additional fears about sending your student off to college at this particular moment in history, because unfortunately we are not yet fully through the COVID era. Over the past year and a half, AUP's board and leadership team navigated with strong centralized support from the French state and its rather remarkable public health network, the complexities of confinement, remote learning in alternation with in-class learning, progressive reopening, and then new protocols for health and safety that are continually updated. We have a website devoted to that called the Information Hub, but we will also be communicating directly with you. I write frequently to parents via email and give you updates on what's happening in France, the situation in France, and on any changes to public health protocols. And so we will be informing you of that regularly. Your children, our students, have been asked to sign honor pledges that they will hew to the rules of our community and promote our global health by adhering to our policies. I hope that you and your child have had a chance to talk about the sense of responsibility for the community, for truly public health, that along with some clarity about our policies and support systems, because this should be reassuring to you and to them. We want them to think about the fact that they go into classrooms where there are teachers who are older than they are. We want them to experience Paris and at the same time to be safe. What you should know is that as you hand your child over to us, you should know that we know by name every single one of our students, and we will do everything in our power to keep them safe and ensure their education this year. We have gotten through the last 18 months relatively unscathed. We also will be remaining in touch with you through our newsletters, through our parent liaison, Dana Callahan, who is here today, and a host of other resources about which you're going to learn more. And we're going to take more questions at the end of this first live meeting for you to be able to talk to various people on the team about questions, specific questions that you may have. Suffice it to say that we are close to attaining in France 76% full vaccination status of France's population, entire population over the age of 12. That puts us ahead this week of the United States, the UK, Germany, and even Israel. We've gotten through the peak of the fourth wave here with plenty of ICU beds to spare. In fact, 2 weeks ago was the peak of new cases. New cases are dropping off. And at this particular moment in Paris, ICU beds are full to 38%. So we've managed our way through this crisis, and the health minister said yesterday that there was no confinement as far as he was concerned in sight. But then again, as this last year has taught us, who really knows? What kind of visibility do we really have? We don't know what the future will bring, a new, maybe even more contagious strain from South Africa, but at this particular moment, we have been authorized to return to full in-person teaching with a nationally imposed mask mandate in all schools and universities without distancing requirements. So masks without distancing requirements. I cannot tell you how happy our faculty and staff are to return to in-person teaching. Say what you will about distance learning, it served its purpose. We got through COVID, but everybody is eager to find their way back into small classrooms where there's a constant exchange between students and their teachers. One final, well, that one's sort of not important. So last but not least, I'm going to wrap up here by taking the liberty of ending with some advice to you. At this moment, I am taking off my president's hat. Oops. You okay?
I'm trying to improve the sound. It's a little...
His back needs to go farther back. Yeah. I'll try to keep it even closer to my mouth. So I'm going to take the liberty of ending with a little bit of advice to you. At this moment, I'm taking off my president's hat to speak from amongst you, a fellow parent. A few years back, I saw my last son off to school. I dropped him off in the United States. I proceeded to cry all the way back home through 3 airports, overnight on my friend's couch, and then all the way to, from the airport at Chapel until I reached my own apartment. When his older brother left, I didn't feel the pinch because I still had a hostage at home. But there was something about the last one leaving that really had an impact on me. Knowing everything that I do about the freshman year experience, having seen generations of students make the kind of change that I hope my son would, that didn't actually let me off the hook of the sort of terrible, empty feeling that can be the emptiness at the moment you say farewell. But when I did finally make my way back to my own apartment and threw open the door, I realized that that apartment would never be so clean. That now that I had 2 boys off to college, I could actually arrange my house the way I wanted to, and it would be organized. There would not be piles of things everywhere. So there are joys, and as time goes on, you discover more and more of them. So I do know exactly how you're feeling today, but you know and I know that this is the moment to let go. I know that you've all read a plethora of articles in the press about the impact on our children of our well-intentioned overprotectiveness. The coddling of the American mind a few years back evoked the oversensitivity of this generation of students to ideas to which they will be exposed in college, the degree to which faculty are having to censor or to banish ideas that might disturb you. A university is nothing if it is not a free marketplace of ideas, where the offensive and the inspiring sometimes touch. Your child needs to be exposed to things that they both love and hate, both revile and respect, in order to forge their own values, to be able to say no firmly to some things, and to be able to adopt others as their credo. Then there was also in the Chronicle of Higher Education an epidemic of anguish, an article exploring why the rates of anxiety and depression amongst American college students have soared. One reason for this is that this particular generation hasn't developed sufficient resilience, a word that we all know, and a word that I love, and an attribute that I strongly value, to handle difficulties, in part because we rush in to solve their problems, remove obstacles, repeatedly calm their anxiety. It's a normal human emotion to experience a lot of anxiety in the face of the new and the unknown, and its antidote is to find one's own solutions, overcome one's own fears, and experience the profoundly self-constructing feeling of mastery. That's how students build themselves. And finally, a more explicit one, kids of helicopter parents are sputtering out. Recent studies show that kids with over-involved parents have an inordinate fear of failure, which leads them to be afraid to take any risks. And what it does is it stands in the way of their normal development, the trial and error that leads most of us more or less intact toward adulthood. So I'm going to leave you today by urging you to give your kids the space to expand their wings in this stimulating new environment. This rush of intellectual ideas, social choices, and cultural riches, while at the same time availing yourselves of all modes of modern telecommunications. But please don't keep them tethered to you. They should not be texting you to ask what they should eat for lunch, especially if you're 9 hours away in another time zone. One of the things that worked out really well for me and my sons was a programmed Sunday Zoom or FedEx, at the time it was Skype call, in which we could see their little faces, we could hear how they were doing, we could laugh,
that sounded processed rather than anxious and wishing that you would step in and solve whatever the problem is. So I recommend, a long and thoughtful conversation once a week. This is actually a moment to allow them the freedom to make their own mistakes without which we cannot learn. Alas, our successes are not our teachers. I always say if you're going to fail, fail magnificently. Fail magnificently. How many of you have not had one abject moment of failure that marked your entire life because after you picked yourself up and dusted yourself off and found your way back, you were changed forever? Each time our children falter, they put another brick in the edifice of their personality, their character, and their value structure. Unfortunately, most of the errors they make at this age are irrevocable. Finding the balance between giving them the space to lean into their own independence and being too much there for them is an art. No parent gets it right all the time. That's why our Office of Student Development is there. I have never known a team so concerned with the welfare of your children, and you can rest assured that we will promote their independence while offering them solid support. You have heard at other moments, maybe over our Vision Virtual Orientation program from the members of that team, about the tough but enduring and supportive love that characterizes our care of your children. We are honored that you have entrusted to us the education of your sons and daughters. We assure you that we take that responsibility very seriously. I can't tell you how passionate we are about your child's learning and how seriously we take our partnership with you in their education and in their health and safety. Thank you for listening for so long and for coming today. I'm going to hand it back to Mary, and we will take some questions.
Thank you, Celeste. I am so sorry for the people in the back that didn't hear some of the first part of the speech, and hopefully my interruption in moving that speaker helped a little bit at the back end. The most important points we have for you is that we hope that between the virtual programs that you watch, and again, if you missed any of them, you can go back and rewatch them or watch them via the parents' webpage, and today's program, which isn't over yet, you have a sense that we will take very good care of your students. We are a place that prides itself on personal relationships with your sons and daughters. That extends to our faculty, of course. Our classes are small. Your students will be engaging with their professors every single day, with their classmates in and out of the classroom, and with our student development staff. My colleagues who work with Mark Montiard in counseling, in GPS programs, in learning assistance, are busy 24/7 helping AUP students. So by all means, if you have a sense that your son or daughter is struggling in any way, or even if they're just wondering about things, I promise you that there is a resource at AUP to help. And that if they ask for help, they will, in fact, receive it. But every day they will feel this community. They're feeling it now. I'm sure you have a sense of that with their student advisors and their roommates. But really that sense of community that begins on day one here in Paris continues throughout the year. And we hope that you have a sense of that through the programs and these conversations that we've been having. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, the leadership team, my colleagues from Outreach and Advancement, and other people who are here from the university are going to hang around up here in the front. Our next stop is in a little less than an hour. We're having a reception for parents over in the beautiful Chateau Forum. That's at 49 Rue Saint-Dominique, across on the lead. It's a beautiful garden space, and we look forward to seeing more of you over there, preferably with a glass of champagne and a canapé. And we will continue this discussion forward. But if you'd like to hang around here, the leadership team members will be up here in the front, and we will be here for probably another 20 minutes or so before we head over. When we go over there, when it's a little bit more of a milling situation, I'm going to take a moment over there and sort of help you identify some of your peers here. Many of you here are parents and students who are here for a semester or a year. And when we have a chance to be observations, comments, and